The first story I'm going to discuss is the Baltimore water crisis. So I do want to play something for you really quick because, look, I'm not psychic, but apparently I made a prediction last week. It was brought to my attention earlier today, and it seems that that has come true. Last week, we were talking about the water shortage in Mississippi. Apparently, I said something that somebody caught on to and they remembered and they brought it to my attention. Again, this was last week. Water shortage, Mississippi. Listen to this. And it's not just Jackson, Mississippi. It's not just Flint, Michigan. It can also be a Baltimore, Maryland. Okay. Yeah, didn't know that was going to happen. Honestly, did not. So for those of you who have not heard about this story, Baltimore, Maryland, or certain parts of Baltimore actually are dealing with the water contamination issue. This really is not surprising to me. As I told you last week, it could be a Baltimore, Maryland, because for those who don't know, I'm from Baltimore, Maryland. Most of my family members still live there, even though I live in Boston. And I did reach out to them, or one of them earlier today, just to check in with them and see how the situation is for them in their neighborhood. And I was told that they have not received any help, not in their neighborhood. So I want you to keep that in mind when you see these videos on mainstream media and they show people delivering bottled water to people in Baltimore. I want you to remember what I just told you. I talked to a family member today and they have not received any. Not yet. But how did this all begin? Let's go ahead and get into it. Now, apparently on Saturday, that was when the city realized that the water tested positive for E. coli bacteria. Here's the other problem. Apparently, they did not notify residents until Monday. Let's go ahead and get into it. Just going to scroll down here. So it says Baltimore residents urged to boil water after E. coli bacteria found in samples. This is not good. But like I told you, not surprising. I'm going to make this a little bit larger, just so people can see in the back. Make this go away. Okay. Baltimore officials are encouraging residents to boil water used for drinking or cooking after E. coli bacteria was detected in some samples of water supply in parts of West Baltimore. I know exactly where that is. That is actually where my grandma's neighborhood was. So I know exactly what area of Baltimore they're talking about. The City Department of Public Works issued a series of tweets Monday informing residents that the bacteria had been found in portions of the city's 9th Council District, which includes Sandtown, Winchester, and Harlem Park neighborhoods. As an extra precaution, DPW will be sampling and surveying the communities in the area of the facilities where the original sampling was performed. Outside the city, residents in parts of Baltimore County and Howard County were also urged to boil water. Let's go on. DPW officials said Wednesday that they were still investigating the source of the contamination, but they had ruled out that it stemmed from wastewater treatment or water treatment plants. Officials said that between Monday evening and Tuesday, water samples were taken at 25 locations and that only one, a police station on Mount Street, came back positive for E. coli. Officials said they are also investigating 2 cases of gastrointestinal illness within the boil water advisory zone, but it has not been confirmed that the cases were caused by E. coli. So gastrointestinal illness is not fun. That can include anything from having stomach ache, obviously having to vomit or having some problems in the bathroom. I'm going to try to be as discreet as possible here, but use your imagination. But that's not fun. Sometimes with situations like that, yeah, you can take medicine, but sometimes you have to kind of let it just run its course. Not a good situation to be in. Officials say, over 100,000 people are affected. CBS News Baltimore investigative reporter Mike Helgren reports state environmental officials are searching for the source of the contamination. The bacteria is often spread during contact with feces. And everybody heard that, right? That's how it's often spread. So just keep that in mind. Crews from the Public Works Department have been distributing water in the area with a limit of 3 gallons per household. And these are some of the pictures that you'll see online, like this one here, where they're handing out gallons of water and the cars just drive up and grab the water. But like I told you, I spoke with a relative today and they have not seen any distributed in their neighborhood. So this time around, it's a little bit different. I talked about Jackson, Mississippi. I've talked about Flint, Michigan, but this time is different because it's personal, because I have family there. That's where I'm from. So now it's like it goes from people that I didn't know being affected to people that are family members being affected. Let's go back in. E. coli contamination can cause intestinal distress with symptoms that include, I was trying to be discreet, but gosh, include stomach cramps, diarrhea, and vomiting. Illness caused by the bacteria usually is mild and clears up on its own, but in rare cases, a potentially life-threatening complication can result about a week following the initial infection. And that comes from the U.S. Center for Disease Control and Prevention. Let's go ahead and pop out here. So here's what I want people to think about. Let's say you're one of the people that gets sick. You have a job. Now you got to call out of work. Because let's be real, it's kind of difficult to go to work if you're running back and forth to the bathroom. And depending on the company you work for, you may not get sick pay. So for some people, if you're in that situation, you're not going to get paid. Again, this goes right back to the healthcare issue, because if we had guaranteed sick leave for everybody in this country, which we don't, if we had universal health care, then you wouldn't be stressed about that. But could you imagine being in a position where financially you are kind of holding on to the little bit of money that you have, just trying to get by? Maybe you're one of those people where you get paid and most of your money goes to your bills, like rent, right? If you're in that situation, you're already stressed out financially. Now you got to deal with this. This is something that the city did, not you. It's their fault. Then you got to worry about missing work because you're going to miss pay. This is why I tell people being poor is stressful. Being poor is not fun. It's stressful, and it can affect your mental health as well as your physical health. This is the thing. And God forbid you have one of those bosses where they don't really like for you to call out. Raise your hand if you're in the chat and you ever worked for someone who was like that. They don't want to care. They don't care about what you have. They don't want to hear that you're sick. They just want you to be there and get the work done. I've had one of those bosses before. That's a stressful situation to be in. Now, here's the problem. The water issue in Baltimore is not new. Yes, this issue in particular, in reference to E. coli contamination, that's new right now. But there have been issues with the water in Baltimore for years. I'm going to show you a video. Get here, and I'll go back to the census in a second. I want to show you a video that honestly I had never seen this video until I was doing research for the story, and I think everybody should see this video. Now, this video is called Baltimore, Maryland Water Quality Assessment: What You Need to Know. This video is not new. Listen to this.
Baltimore recently released its annual water quality report, and our water nerds dug through it so you don't have to. Make sure to comment below to suggest which city our water nerd should tackle next. Let's start with lead. Lead enters tap water through old service pipes and lead-containing plumbing. 10% of the sites that were tested for lead had concentrations of over 5 parts per billion. Additionally, 2 samples exceeded the federal action level of 15 parts per billion. EPA, CDC, and the American Academy of Pediatrics all recognize that there is no safe level of lead for children. Additionally, these measurements may not be a true indication of your tap water if your home has lead plumbing or lead fixtures. Lead exposure can cause developmental issues.
Did you hear what he just said? So he just said that they found that the lead levels in the water in Baltimore was not safe for children. Again, not a new video. Let's go back in as he goes into detail about what can happen if you have exposure to lead.
Lowered IQ and damages to the kidneys and brain. Next is disinfection byproducts, or DBPs. Although in compliance with loose EPA standards, the DBP concentrations detected in Baltimore are extremely high. Concentrations were detected as high as 107 parts per billion and averaged 69 parts per billion for trihalomethanes. Haloacetic acid concentrations were as high as 60 parts per billion and averaged 49 parts per billion.
I'm going to turn on the captions so you can see what he's saying, because some of the vocabulary. Okay.
Lowered IQ, and damages to the kidneys and brain. Next is disinfection byproducts, or DBPs. Although in compliance with loose EPA standards, the DBP concentrations detected in Baltimore are extremely high.
Okay, this is a problem here, because if you notice, he said low EPA standards. So here's the thing. I guess if you only have to meet technically a certain threshold, right? So the water in Baltimore, it meets EPA regulations loosely, but it meets it just enough for it to pass, even though it's at the lower level. So just because you see something and it says regulated by EPA standards or meets EPA standards, it can meet the standards, but how high does it meet it? So he just said it was really low. Listen to this.
Concentrations were detected as high as 107 parts per billion and averaged 69 parts per billion for trihalomethanes. Haloacetic acid concentrations were as high as 60 parts per billion and averaged 49 parts per billion. Disinfection byproducts are a category of emerging contaminants, which means they've been detected in drinking water, but the risk to human health is unknown. Regulatory agencies have very little knowledge about the adverse health effects of DBPs and their toxicity. EPA has stated that they have been linked to increased risk of bladder cancer as well as kidney, liver, and central nervous system problems. Our water nerds are on the lookout for other cities to cover. If you would like us to see what's going on in your town, please let us know and comment below.
Do that. I'll give you the link to this in just a second. But again, look at the risk here that you can have from these levels, because I want to point something out.
Per billion and averaged 49 parts per billion. Disinfection byproducts are a category of emerging contaminants, which means they've been detected in drinking water, but the risk to human health is unknown. Regulatory agencies have very little knowledge about the adverse health effects of DBPs and their toxicity. EPA has stated that they have been linked to increased risk of bladder cancer as well as kidney, liver, and central nervous system problems.
Those are health issues. When we talk about these environmental issues, and I told you this before, who do they usually impact? people who are in low income or poor neighborhoods, people in Black neighborhoods, people in brown neighborhoods. This is an example of environmental racism. You see how this works? All of these effects here, kidney, liver, central nervous system problems, and before that, he said bladder cancer. And people wonder why cancer rates are going up. People wonder why people are having more kidney issues, problems with the central nervous system. Sometimes could these things be related to your diet? Yes, but I want to, put that talking point to the side for a second, because that's not always the answer, and that's not always the cause. Sometimes the cause is because of the environment that you are living in. And this is a perfect example. If you are drinking the water because you can't afford to buy bottled water is expensive. So if you are on a fixed or a tight income, 9 times out of 10, you are drinking the tap water. It's free. And not realizing, if you are in Baltimore, could be giving yourself a greater risk of bladder cancer, kidney disease, liver, central nervous system problems. And we wonder why these rates continue to increase with people in these neighborhoods. And a lot of times we need to link it back to the environment, link it back to the water, not necessarily your diet. Now, here's the problem. When it comes to diet, if you can afford, and I say afford because eating healthy is expensive. If you can afford to eat healthy, then you're going to do that. You can do that. But that's something you may have some control over. You don't have control over what's in the water. You don't have control over that. So what are you supposed to do?
Our water nerds are on the lookout for other cities to cover. If you would like us to see what's going on in your town, please let us know and comment below. Also, if you have any questions about this report or anything else water related, drop us a line at hello@hydraviv.com or visit hydraviv.com and use our live chat.
This video was posted. I want to show you here. Let me just scoot to the back because I want to show you the date. This video was posted July 23rd, 2018. Guys, that was 4 years ago. So there was the point that I'm trying to make to you. There was already a problem with the water. Why wasn't that covered by mainstream media? Who knows what other communities in this country are dealing with the same issue and they just don't know it, right? Now, I'm going to get back to Baltimore in just a second because Eric just told me, and Eric, if you give me that link. Oh, you're putting it up there? Okay. Eric just informed me that we have another water issue right here in Massachusetts. Just showed me this. Boom. Boil water order issued in Wilmington, Massachusetts after samples test positive for E. coli. That's right here in Massachusetts. See? I think we might have someone from Wilmington in the chat. Residents in Wilmington are being asked to boil their water for at least a minute after the town's Department of Public Works learned a sample from the water system tested positive for E. coli bacteria. Wilmington DPW announced the discovery on Thursday, shortly after collecting the test results and notifying the State Department of Environmental Protection. Residents are also being asked to throw out all iced beverages, uncooked foods, and formula made with tap water collected September 7th, 2022. So again, if you're on a fixed income, now you got to throw out any food, anything basically that touched the tap water, you got to throw it all out. Is the city, what's that, Wild Arts? I boiled mine for 10 minutes today. There you go. So is the town of Wilmington going to help the residents who have to throw out all their food restock their refrigerator? Are they going to give them food vouchers or something like that? Groceries are expensive here in Massachusetts right now. This is important. So here we go again. This is why I was telling you guys, it's not just Jackson, Mississippi. It's not just Flint, Michigan. I'll go back in here. It also says, once samples come back favorable and DEP approves listing the order, a new message will be released to the public. So according to the town's website, Wilmington's water distribution system includes 4 groundwater wells and 2 water treatment plants, encompassing some 138 miles worth of water mains and over 1,200 fire hydrants. Who's next? I don't know what to tell you, except we kind of saw this. It's going to be someone else soon, right? Now, Baltimore, Maryland has some similarities to Jackson, Mississippi. Again, this is where I'm from. I know this particularly well. If you don't know much about Baltimore in reference to the census, you're about to find out now. So, this is from census.gov. We're looking at Baltimore, Maryland here, and I want to show you some comparisons that we made in reference to Jackson, Mississippi. We're going to start with race and Hispanic origin because you're going to see the similarities. White alone, the percentage of white alone in Baltimore is 29.7%. I'd say that's spot on. Black or African American alone, the percentage is 62.3%. Then we go down, American Indian or Alaska Native, 0.3%. Asian alone, 2.5%. Native Hawaiian or other Pacific Islander, 0%. 2 or more races, 3.2%. Hispanic or Latino is 5.4%. And white alone, not Hispanic or Latino, 27.3%. So similar to Jackson, Mississippi, the majority of the residents in Baltimore are Black. You see the comparison here? You see the point I'm trying to make? The majority are Black. Let's look at income. Let's go down to that. Going to scooch down here. Income and poverty. More similarities. The median household income, now this is 2016 to 2020, is $52,164. Now, depending on where you live, that may seem like a lot of money, but Maryland is expensive. Believe it or not, Maryland's one of those states that's further south that's still expensive, just like Virginia. I always tell people anything near DC is expensive. Now, per capita income in the past 12 months, 32,699. Persons in poverty, 20%. So if you're looking at this income, $52,000 is the median income. I would say a lot of the people who are living in Baltimore are working class. Now, let's go back up here. And there's one more I want to touch on, and that's education. Okay. High school graduate or higher, percent of persons aged 25 and up, 2016 to 2020, 85.5%. Bachelor's degree or higher, 32.9%. So again, similar to Jackson, Mississippi, the majority of the residents do not have a college degree. The majority of the residents have a high school diploma. So 9 times out of 10, they're working class. These are the things I really want people to pay attention to. When I tell you this would not happen in Beverly Hills, when I tell you that this wouldn't happen in Potomac Mills, believe me, it wouldn't. And one of the things that I've learned over time, I've learned something in my life. Something I learned is that it seems like when wealthy people complain, things get resolved very quickly. If people in a wealthy neighborhood have a noise complaint, nipped in the bud pretty quickly. They complain about construction in the area, gets resolved pretty quickly. And if they were to have this issue, which they would likely not, if they were, I bet you it would be resolved pretty quickly. That doesn't happen for people who are poor and people who are working class. And I can point to Hurricane Katrina in New Orleans as a perfect example, because most of the people who were stuck and had no way out, sitting on the top of the roof of their house, waiting for the US government to intervene and come help them, those people were stuck for weeks before they even came down there and tried to help. You had celebrities helping people in New Orleans before the president came in. That's why Kanye West made that speech and he said that George Bush doesn't care about Black people. That's just an example. Now I want to show you one more thing that I think is important to note as well on the census. Health insurance. Here we go. Health. With a disability under age 65, the percentage is 11.8%. Persons without health insurance under age 65, 6.8%. So that's still important. And I'm looking at the number, the percentage of people who are disabled. Who's helping them? Who's going to help them get bottled water? If they can't leave the house, is somebody there to help? These are things we need to think about. But I'll say it again. What's happening in Baltimore is not by accident. These things happen because it's been happening for years where they don't care what happens to those communities. It's not just the drinking water. It's the hospitals in the neighborhood. There was a hospital in Baltimore called Bon Secure. And the nickname for it was Bon Secure. Because the running joke was, if you went to Bon Secure, you did not come back out. Not kidding. So all of it is connected. And sometimes I wonder, and I have to ask myself, sometimes I wonder if they just don't want us to be helped, right? Sometimes I wonder if the elites are sitting back and they're just folding their arms and nodding their heads and they want us to die off. They want us to get sick and not get help. Sometimes I wonder they just want all of us to go, all the poor people and working class people to go, so that they can just have everything the way that they want it. And I've seen that same sentiment with people living in the tent communities, where some of the wealthy people just look down on them, not understanding how they got in that situation, just assuming that all of them are on drugs, just assuming that all of them made bad decisions. Not necessarily true. There are people living in tent communities that have jobs. But sometimes I wonder, maybe they just want to get rid of us. Maybe that's why they allow gentrification to continue.